What is up, you beautiful people? Welcome back to more CS news. We got a lot of stories to cover and probably a lot happening this week, so I hope you guys all enjoy. Got a beverage with you, and thanks for everyone who's been leaving comments as of late. We've been breaking comment records for all the people out there contributing. I do appreciate that kind of stuff, and it's kind of the goal of the channel to have comments going back and forth and actually discussing all these CS topics. One in which you're probably going to discuss today, that's all around S1mple. Yes, he is back in the news. He's the talk of the town, obviously for rightful reasons, as we slowly approach IEM Dallas, eventually the major. All eyes are on TaZ and also other teams like Falcons as well. Both teams that S1mple has actually played for and will be playing for maybe for a short period of time. It was actually him going on stream yet again to talk about his past, and this actually stemming back to, I believe, the Team Liquid days. This might have been, would this be the same as the Hiko days? Back in the day, S1mple playing with Team Liquid and also with EliGE on the roster, and talking about his toxic personality back then, his toxic traits back then, and how it not only affected himself, but someone like EliGE, and they had a bit of a past conflict on that old TL roster.
Ладно, Сань, другой вопрос. Если останешься вдруг в фузах, пожалуйста, не кикай Рейна, пожалуйста, не кикай Рейна.
Ты что, гонишь? Это он мне первый, если что, в инсту написал, поэтому, блядь, только кто-то попробует его.
Рейн! Найс! Ладно, Саня, а что про своих тиммейтов скажешь? Как они тебе вообще?
Как тиммейты, ну, блядь, мне все нравится. Кто-то говорит, может, за счет того, ну, типа, что возрастная команда, но блядь, с Карриганом и с Рейном, особенно с Рейном, я хотел поиграть очень давно. С EliGE я играл, и он очень силен. С Фрозом только не играл.
А, Саня, можно вопрос задать? Он чуть-чуть провокационный, возможно, но всех он интересует.
Да, конечно.
Говорят, что у тебя конфликт с EliGE был раньше, и что сейчас будет?
Да, у нас был конфликт. Я тогда был токсичный очень, ну, типа, высказывал в игре. А он, когда тильтил, он закрывался в себе. И, само собой, ему не нравилось то, что я токсичил, особенно во время турниров. Сейчас что будет? Сейчас будет 2 турнира, поэтому я еще не успею разозлиться на него, как старые добрые.
Now, luckily, that was years ago. I mean, that was, blow your mind, that was almost 10 years ago. That is not just how old we all are, but how fast the time flies and how good these guys are still at counterstrike, especially someone like EliGE. I feel like EliGE is now peaking in CS, which is crazy when you think about that. But I think it's something we could probably easily look behind. And at least Sasha is actually forthcoming about this, saying, hey, yeah, I was very toxic. You know, admitting all of that is the first step in all of it. And to be able to admit it and improve upon it and actually recognize it are some big things. And so hopefully those kind of toxic traits or that conflict between these two will not return. I'm not really too worried about that, though. I also didn't really know about their conflict way back in 2016, which hopefully will not impact the roster now in 2025. Still super curious where these guys go. And of course, S1mple had to be in the news today, but I would also argue he's not one of the crazier stories today. That's going to be from Team ODDIK, which I always say ODDIK. I know you guys know that I know that you know that my pronunciations suck, okay? And it's not going to be the only time I mispronounce names in just today's episode alone, but I've never seen this, all right? And just like the header smoke we talked about yesterday, EliGE, the big brain, heading that smoke on dust too long, he can head it out of the way. Apparently other teams have been doing that. Same too, apparently teams have been doing this, where you can actually buy a weapon to start the round and then use it and then quickly go back and give it to someone who has not left spawn and refund the weapon and buy something else. This is a clear and blatant misuse of the game, all right? I don't care what side you stand on, no matter how bad or good you think this is. It is cool. It is creative. I will give them that, but this is not a proper use of the game mechanics. I don't think this will be in the game much longer, and this might change how you feel about ODDIK, and this will be a developing story as they've now gone back and forth with some G2 staff members around this play that they made. What do you guys think about it?
Strong defense at the bomb site itself after all that chaos in the initial round. 2-0. Double scout investment that they pass back after a shot and sell back. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of cool. I think that's the first time I've seen that. Is that the first time you've seen that?
Well, taking a shot and selling it. You shouldn't be able to do that.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what they just did. I'm like 99 to 100% sure that's what they just did.
Shoot. Can't sell it.
I don't know.
That's okay.
They passed it off to a player, AFK and Spawn, who hadn't shot it.
That is... If that's a thing...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. We can watch it all back again, but...
And again, I love creativity. We talked about EliGE smoke header. Now, that's not the same instance that we're talking about with this. This seems to be a misuse of the game that is not fair and probably should not be allowed, especially for me. And Dinko says it in the clip, when you buy a weapon and you use a weapon, you should not be able to sell the weapon. Once you've used the ammo for it, that seems like a bit of an unfair thing. I would get it if you're going to, use a scoped weapon of some sort to get some vision and then sell it back for a rifle. Like, maybe that makes sense. I don't know if there's much utility for a pro player doing that. But yeah, ODDIK was facing a bit of flack for doing this, and some actually praising them because apparently they're not the only team to have done this. And an important clarification is actually one of their players, Woody, has clarified this was done to them and PGL approved of this being done. So no matter if you agree with PGL's ruling or not, it was allowed. And so will it be allowed for future tournaments and by Valve themselves? We await to see if there will be changes or fixes for this. But what do you guys think about ODDIK and the scout buying refund bug? It's clever, but I don't think it'll be around long. And speaking of that team, it was actually them bringing down G2. G2 has had a bit of a rough stay at Astana, which makes sense when you have someone like TaZ now in for the roster, and it's a new team yet again. It makes sense. Now, it sucks seeing a fall off, right? You lose a Nico, you lose a m0NESY, and G2 go from top of the world to, middle of the rung. We have so many competitive teams out there, but this probably should have been expected and was by a lot of you guys, and I think they just barely brushed across M80 at the point of me recording to avoid the 0-3 at Astana, but it was actually TaZ after the game, which is might have been a bit of a translation, but definitely did not sound good. As he said, well played to ODDIK. It's a horror. It's disgusting how we play, but it's not a one-man game, not one guy's fault. We need to step it up as a group of people. Time to show character and transform this abysmal performance into something we can be proud of. These are the best lessons you can have in life. Welcome adversity with open arms. And it ended great. It didn't start you never want your coach / now fill-in to be like, oh, this is abysmal. This is a horror. It is disgusting. But at the same time, it's got to be so rough to be a part of this G2 squad with all these changes, not just, mentally taxing, but of course, physically taxing to still go to all the events. I've talked about this before. It cannot be easy to be a G2 player in these times. And clearly TaZ is a demonstration of that. We'll see how they round out Astana and approach their major run with Hades now just filling in for the first time and already has been rumored to be out after the major. So again, all these mental battles these players got to go through of you're in for a month and a half, then you're going to be out. And all the G2 guys are like, you got a new guy again for a month and a half, and then we're going to change again after the major, but it's okay. But either way, we'll see how G2 handles that so-called adversity, and we have a new team now on the block. It was actually Eternal Fire, in case you guys have been living under a frickin' rock. Of course, one of the best rosters in the world, especially the time they sold to Aurora. It was a big buyout for this entire roster, some money needed for Eternal Fire as they have some gambling restrictions in their country, which does not allow them to take on the big sponsors that all of these big top 5 and top 10 team organizations in the world can have, right? When you have those gambling sponsors and that gamble money, you can really afford to lock down a big roster, and that's what's paying for a lot of these big teams out there. And so they sold off the once EF to now Aurora, which just feels so wrong still. They have now signed a brand new all-Turkish lineup that I would say is actually a bit older than I thought. You have Emor on there, you have Calix. I mean, a long stander in Calix has been there since, probably over a decade now. He's been bouncing back and forth to EF or Turkish lineups. And then you also have, I think it's M3r, who was a former EF Academy guy as well. It was an older roster than I thought, but they stayed true to their roots with an all-Turkish team. And so the brand new Eternal Fire roster is now here. I am wishing these guys the best of luck. I hope they can actually climb the ladder. I don't know ceiling-wise how you compare this to the former EF and how that... Is there even a fair comparison to what those guys have done and are doing? And can this new EF roster ever reach that peak? I have no idea, but I do know the diehard nature of the Turkish CS fans. They are great to watch no matter what. If they make it to a main event or to a big event, they will have fans cheering for them, and I will be one of them. So best of luck, of course, to the new Eternal Fire roster. Speaking of one of their older players, that being Maj3r, who I always called Major, and sometimes people get pissed off by that. He was shown with his strats page recently, which is all strats and then a picture of his family. Is that not the cutest thing you have ever seen? How can you not like these guys. But until next time, we got a lot of news coming, especially when it comes to the ODDIK scout bug. There's going to be some development on that, guys, which is going to be a fun little discussion. If we're talking about former bug abuse or bug abusers out there, maybe that will ring a bell to all of you. But until next time, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for subbing to this channel, and our other channels are down below as well. I guess a little sneak preview for you guys. We got some big news coming for this channel, but on our gaming interviews channel, I'm about to interview the CEO of Notorious Studios. He's a former Blizzard employee, worked on World of Warcraft, and now is working on a brand new game called Legacy Steel and Sorcery. So gonna be a pretty cool discussion. That's gonna go on later today, but of course we'll be back here tomorrow with more Counter-Strike news. All right, till next time, take care. Okay, bye-bye.